Kevin Gordon here from Autosavant.com with your March 26th edition of the Afternoon Commute. It's been a while, and I apologize as usual. Really, I'm going to start pushing hard to get these things out more frequently. Last week, I had the pleasure of being in Las Vegas, do a little college basketball betting, enjoy some good meals, have some good times, and the resulting Vegas hangover and a little bit of jet lag caused me to not get another afternoon commute in for the week. So, what's happening today? Well, starting out with the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, they came out with some recommendations to diminish distracted driving. And their stats say that in 2010, there were 26,000 accidents out of almost 900,000, or 3% of them, that were the result of distracted driving from infotainment and navigation systems. So they came out with a pile of recommendations in what might be the world's worst worded document in history. It goes into all kinds of stuff about static images and dynamic images, and really it would have been nice if they could have just written it in English instead of legalese. But the core of it seems to boil down to a few concepts. One, there can only be so many characters on a screen that you're looking at one time, and they go into pointing out the fact that, say, satellite radio interfaces these days have too many characters. More than 30 seems to be their limits, and that's a problem. Then it goes into saying that dynamically moving images, so for example, dynamically moving maps, are also a problem. So they would like to go to some kind of static or semi-static map view, which would only refresh images for, every, say, 2 seconds at the highest level, basically making navigation maps a thing of the past. And my thought about that was a couple things. One, does anybody remember paper maps? I gotta be honest, taking a paper map out of the old seat back pocket from behind you, pulling it out, unfolding it, and holding it here while you're driving down the highway, as far as I'm concerned, wasn't the safest thing, and they don't do any kind of point in comparison to say, this rather than that. The other thing, and the most glaring thing to me, is it's navigation systems and being able to put in your destinations while you're driving. Sure, they can be a little bit dangerous. But the thing that really is really dangerous, really, how many times can I say really, is texting while driving and looking at your actual smartphone and holding it up and trying to get into some kind of soft touch screen while you're driving is the real danger. I was driving this weekend, and a group of young women in a white Volkswagen Jetta almost rear-ended me on their way to a mall in my area. And after I got them to pay attention and not smash me from behind, I noticed that the woman driving, and this isn't to pick on women because men are just as guilty, but it was a woman, was actually holding her iPhone up like this and texting on it, even after almost running into me. She didn't stop. It went on for the rest of her travels. That to me is the much bigger issue. Now, am I in favor of taking away the liberty of having control over your phone while you're driving? No, I think people should be allowed to make their own decisions. But something needs to be done to more strongly enforce the fact that this is not okay. And sure, there's laws out today to say that you're not allowed to text while driving. How well are they enforced? I don't really know, and I don't really know what the answer is. But I think going after infotainment screens and moving maps, which help you clearly know where you're going, not have to make big sweeping merges ahead of time, seems to me to be a safer choice than going to something that's less intuitive, less informative, and might make you rely more on something like this, which does really cause distraction. Next up for today, something fun. The Texas Mile took place. over the weekend, I believe. And the Texas Mile is a competition in Texas, of course, for high-performance cars to go run a standing mile, or a start from stop mile-long run to see what top speed they can achieve. The winner this year, and the new record holder for at least the Texas version of the standing mile, was a Ford GT, which was modified by Hennessy, the performance tuning house. It managed to hit 257.7 miles per hour in a mile. And in quotes by the driver, he was well over 200 in the first half mile. And that's when he knew he was going to really break the record. I believe last year's record was 235 miles an hour. And the Ford GT seems to be the choice of tuners in this. It's mid-engined, it's got some space in the engine bay for modifications, and that 5.4 liter Ford engine really seems to favor forced induction, and as a result it can make those astronomical numbers. Number 3 for today, because what would a afternoon commute be without some kind of mention of Fisker? The battery manufacturer for Fisker, which is called A123, they must have gotten their naming from the same marketing company that named the new iPad. They are recalling, oh boy, what are they called? Let's see. I believe they're prismatic celled batteries that are in, of course, the Fisker Karma. They're being recalled because of the fact that one of their automated welding robots wasn't operating to spec, and as a result was compacting the batteries, which can cause them to fail. So reading between the lines here, A123, the company that makes the batteries for the Fisker Karma, is stepping up to take the blame for the problems that Fisker's been having with their batteries. And you have to believe this will also be attributed to what happened to Consumer Reports Fisker when it broke down in the parking lot basically upon taking delivery of it, and so on. So they'll be recalling them, both the batteries and the control modules, and I suppose replacing them. So we'll see if their replace models work better and keep Fisker out of the headlines in the near future. Next up for today, this weekend was the Malaysian Formula One Grand Prix. And if you're not watching Formula One, I beg you to do so. I would love for it to be bigger in the States and get better TV coverage. Although, when I say better TV coverage, it isn't to say to put it on the networks, because they don't show the races live. They cut them down to fit within an hour and a half. Anyway, so the Formula One race this week in Malaysia was delayed due to rain, although it did take place on a wet track for a large part of it. And as is normally the case, a wet race became an interesting race because it really flips things on their head and allows drivers without the best cars to win the race. And spoiler alert, if you haven't watched the race, turn off the afternoon commute now, or just skip ahead about 35 seconds and you should be fine. Fernando Alonso in the Ferrari won the race. And he did it with a car that is nowhere near the best car in the field. Other interesting things that happened, Sebastian Vettel, while fighting for fourth place in what also doesn't seem to be the best car for the year, crashed into Karthikeyan while overtaking him, or Karthikeyan crashed into him while overtaking, which got Vettel to call him an idiot in the press afterwards. All in all, it seems like it's going to be a pretty interesting season of Formula One. There's some competitive cars. The McLarens of Jenson Button and Lewis Hamilton seem to be the fastest cars, at least early in the season, but there's a lot of competition out there. So it should be a good season, and hopefully we'll get a U.S. Grand Prix. Also in auto racing news, I suppose you could call it auto racing news, Dodge has announced that it will be campaigning a Dodge Dart in the U.S. locations for RallyCross. RallyCross is a bit of an engineered motorsport that people liken to like motocross or supermoto with cars, and it's, you know, a mix of dirt tracks and street courses with jumps and drifting and other things that hopefully will make people watch it on ESPN. So Dodge is going to have a Dart done up by SRT that's going to make 600 plus horsepower and 550 plus foot-pounds of torque, and it's going to be driven by Travis Pastrana. This should be a pretty successful relationship, I think. One, Travis Pastrana has got a huge following, and he should. He's a pretty awesome guy, always seems to be in a good mood, does well on camera. He's legitimate, honest, really nobody you could want more driving your car. And it's a nice introduction for the Dart in the US, as well as SRT's performance division there. Will of course be all-wheel drive, and should be interesting to see how it does as it goes throughout the season. And to close out today, your yuck moment for the week, Subaru has released pictures of an upcoming prototype that it plans to start selling at the end of the year. And I guess it might not be a prototype, it might be pictures of the final production model. It is the Subaru XV. Pictures of it are here. And just in case the current Impreza isn't quite ugly enough for you, they've decided to make this a high-riding crossover vehicle based on the Impreza. You know, in case a Forester, which is also based off the Impreza, isn't good enough for you, you can have that as well. We'll be at the New York Auto Show covering it, and hopefully we'll get some live pictures of it for you there. And as usual, I'm Kevin Gordon from Autosavant.com. It's been your March 26th edition of the Afternoon Commute, and I look forward to talking to you guys tomorrow.